When you gaze into your child's eyes, you're not just seeing a soul to raise, you're staring into the mirror of your own unfinished lessons. Karma doesn't just arrive, it cries, it laughs, it grows, and sometimes it looks exactly like you. From the moment a child enters this world, they are not merely a bundle of innocence waiting to be shaped. They arrive with stories, with wisdom, with invisible memories. The world may tell us they are blank slates, but the soul knows better. Their cries are not empty, and their eyes do not gaze without meaning. If you have ever held a newborn and felt a strange sense of recognition, if you've ever looked into your child's face and felt as though time folded into itself, you have touched something eternal. That is not coincidence. That is karma speaking. You see, your child is not your beginning. They are your continuation. You are not meeting them for the first time. You are remembering them. Across lifetimes, through lessons unlearned and love unexpressed, that soul has traveled to find you. Their arrival is not random. It is orchestrated with sacred precision. Every moment of joy, every challenge, every breathtaking wonder or heartbreaking frustration, they are all threads in a tapestry that began before either of you could speak its name, and now you must finish weaving it together. This is why parenting is not just a biological task, it is spiritual stewardship. This child is not simply your responsibility, they are your reflection, sent back to you not just to be raised, but to raise something within you. The child you have is the child your soul needed. Not always the child you expected, not always the one you dreamed of, but always the one your spirit called in. And they too carry their own spiritual history. Your child did not arrive here in pieces, waiting for you to complete them. They arrived whole, though hidden. Their wholeness may be wrapped in silence, in questions, in temper, in tenderness, but it is there. You do not build their soul, you uncover it. You do not fill them with purpose, you help them remember it. When you begin to see your child this way, not as a canvas to paint on, but as a sacred return, you step into the real meaning of parenthood. The sleepless nights become more than sacrifice, they become offerings. The tantrums become more than stress, they become teachings. The moments when your child triggers your deepest wounds are not punishment, they are revelation. They show you where your healing must happen. Many parents look at their children and say, "Why is he so stubborn?" Or "Why is she so sensitive?" But what if those traits are echoes of your own soul? What if your child's persistence is the same persistence you buried as a child because the world called it disobedience? What if your child's sensitivity is the sensitivity you once had until it became unsafe to feel too much? What if your child isn't bringing something new into your life, but something forgotten? Your child comes not just with DNA, but with destiny. And that destiny is braided with yours in ways no science can explain. You can feed them, clothe them, teach them manners, but your deeper work is to see them, to really see, to recognize that the soul inside your child is neither small nor new, it is eternal. And when you realize that, you begin to treat each interaction as sacred. You don't just correct them, you connect with them. You don't just raise your voice, you raise your awareness, because you understand this child was never yours to possess, only yours to protect. When a soul chooses to return to this world through you, it is not a favor, it is an assignment. That soul has chosen your shadow and your light. It has chosen your wisdom and your wounds. And sometimes your child will reflect not the parts of you you love, but the parts you have hidden. That is the hard truth of karma. It does not only return the beauty, it returns the brokenness too, not to shame you, but to free you. So if your child is angry, ask yourself, where have I stored my anger? If your child is afraid, ask, where do I still live in fear? If your child is wild with joy, ask, "When did I last dance like no one was watching?" Because your child is not just here to be guided by you, they are here to guide you back to your truest self. In ancient traditions, it was believed that children carried divine knowledge closer to the source because they had just arrived from it. Elders didn't dismiss their voices, they listened. They didn't shut down their questions, they honored them. And maybe we need to return to that sacred way. Maybe parenting is less about telling our children who to be and more about remembering who we were before the world made us forget. The modern world may teach us to plan, to perfect, to control, but your child will teach you how to let go. They will show you the rhythm of the moment. They will ask for your attention when you're distracted, your softness when you feel rigid, your presence when you feel pulled in every direction. And that's not random, that's divine orchestration. The exact soul you needed to soften you, to awaken you, to stir your spirit arrived in the form of your child. And here's what makes it even more beautiful. You too were once someone's karmic return. You were once the child who came bearing lessons, unhealed lines of lineage, love wrapped in vulnerability. Maybe your own parents saw it, maybe they didn't, but that doesn't end the story. It just passes the pen to you. Now you hold the pen, and your child is the page, but write with grace, speak with care, because your words do not vanish, they echo into their adulthood, into their relationships, into how they one day parent. Every time you see your child as sacred, you remind them that they are more than enough. Every time you meet them with presence, you teach them that they are worthy of attention. Every time you apologize when you're wrong, you show them that love can be humble. That's karma transformed. So remember this. Your child is not a project. Your child is a prayer answered, or maybe a prayer you didn't know your soul was whispering. They are not here to be controlled. They are here to be understood. And as they grow, they will not always make it easy. But if you listen closely, even their rebellion will teach you something profound. The beauty of karma is that it does not bind you. It invites you. It says, "Here is your mirror. Here is your second chance. Here is the soul who has come to walk beside you, to stretch you, to love you, to frustrate you, and ultimately to liberate you. So when you tuck them in at night, when you calm their fears, when you correct their mistakes, know that you are not simply raising a child, you are tending to a returning soul. You are not just shaping a life, you are meeting your own spirit in a new form. And that, dear one, is nothing short of holy. There's a truth most parents overlook, not because it is hidden, but because it is humbling. You think you are teaching your child to listen, but really, your child is showing you how you sound. You think you are shaping their behavior, but truly, they are reflecting your energy. This is the great paradox of parenting. You are not standing on a stage with a megaphone shouting instructions into a young life. You are standing in front of a mirror. And every word you speak, every sigh you release, every choice you make is echoed back to you through your child's being. A child does not become who you say they should be. They become what they see you choose to be, over and over again. You can tell them to be kind, but if you speak with cruelty in your own moments of anger, they learn sharpness, not softness. You can insist that they be honest, but if they watch you lie to save face or comfort, they learn the sound of dishonesty dressed up in convenience. They are not listening to your lectures as much as they are absorbing your essence. And this is why parenting is one of the most spiritual, soul-revealing roles we will ever undertake. It is easy to reach for control. It is tempting to speak louder when you feel unheard, to demand obedience when you feel disrespected, to cling to authority when you feel uncertain. But in doing so, you risk missing the invitation, because your child is not here to be your echo chamber. They are here to be your soul's reflector, and nothing shows you who you are more clearly, more intimately, and more urgently than the way your child responds to you. Your tone becomes their tone. Your body language becomes their comfort or their fear. Your reactions become their script. You are not just the narrator of their childhood, you are the atmosphere of it. And like air, your presence seeps into every corner. They don't have to see you to feel you. They don't have to understand your pain to inherit it. If you carry bitterness in your silence, they will pick up on it in their skin. If you hide resentment beneath your smile, they will feel it in the way they sit beside you. Children may not have the language to name what they feel, but their spirits are highly literate in energy. And yet, this is not a reason to drown in guilt. It is a reason to awaken to grace, because once you realize parenting is a mirror, you can use it as a sacred tool. Your child's behavior, even when it frustrates you, becomes a window, not just into who they are becoming, but into what you may still need to heal. When your child becomes angry, do you match their fire, or do you ask yourself what in you is being triggered? When they interrupt, do you silence them quickly, or do you wonder where in your life your voice was silenced first? When they demand attention, do you push them away with distractions, or do you reflect on whether they've learned that love must compete? A child will press every button you didn't know was still wired, and in doing so, they aren't breaking you. They are showing you what still needs repair. The impulse to scold without reflection is strong, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, or wounded yourself. But parenting is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to ask the right questions, even of yourself. We must ask, am I parenting with awareness or autopilot? Am I reacting from habit or responding from truth? Am I seeing my child for who they are or who I fear they might become? These are questions that don't just help your child grow, they help you evolve. And sometimes the loudest voices come from silence. A child can walk into a room and feel what you're not saying. They know when you're pretending peace. They sense when you're holding tension like a weight in your chest. You don't have to shout to make noise. Your unresolved past will speak through you if you do not make peace with it. That is why parenting is not a task for the faint of heart. It requires the courage to do the inner work, not just to raise a child, but to raise your consciousness. You cannot expect your child to regulate their emotions if you explode every time the pressure rises. You cannot expect them to apologize sincerely if you never let them hear the words, "I'm sorry," from you. You cannot ask them to be patient while modeling impatience in every traffic jam, every grocery line, every moment they ask for something at the wrong time. The true discipline of parenting is not the rules you enforce, it's the reflection you embody. The home becomes a temple or a battlefield depending on what you bring into it. Your voice becomes their inner voice. Your eyes become the mirror they seek to measure their worth. Your hands become the safety they run to or the fear they flinch from. So what are you giving them? What legacy are you imprinting? Not in words, but in vibrations. You don't have to be flawless to raise a whole child. But you do have to be honest. Honest enough to say, I was wrong. Honest enough to say, I'm learning too. Honest enough to say, let's grow together. Because when your child sees you evolve, they learn that growth is not shameful. It is sacred. They learn that adults aren't perfect beings who never fall, but humble beings who rise again and again. And that lesson is more powerful than any bedtime story. If you want to raise a child who knows their worth, Show them how you honor your own. If you want them to have boundaries, let them witness you uphold yours without guilt. If you want them to love deeply, let them feel loved even in your weakest moments. Your consistency matters, but so does your vulnerability. Your strength matters, but so does your softness. Your wisdom matters, but so does your willingness to listen when your child speaks truth. When they cry, don't rush to fix. Be still and listen. When they ask the hard questions, don't deflect. Lean in and speak honestly, even if the answer is, I don't know yet. When they act out, don't only correct. Be curious. What are they trying to tell you? What in your own spirit is being invited to the surface? There is a rhythm to the sacred mirror of parenting. Sometimes it hums quietly with connection. Other times it shatters with misunderstandings. But in every crack there is light. Every misstep is a chance to return, to realign, to renew the way you see yourself and your child. So put down the megaphone. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. Clear in your intention, clear in your healing, clear in your love. Speak less to instruct and more to inspire. Be less concerned with controlling outcomes and more committed to cultivating inner strength in both of you. Because one day your child will grow beyond your reach, but the echo of your presence will remain in the way they speak to others, in the way they love, in the way they stand up after falling, in the way they look in the mirror and either smile or search for approval. So let them see a mirror that is kind. Let them reflect someone who is healing, someone who is growing, someone who knows that love is not noise. It is the quiet, consistent choice to show up with grace again and again. There will come a day, maybe more than one, when your child tests every ounce of patience you thought you had mastered. Their refusal to listen, their messy defiance, the unpredictable storms of their emotions, all of it will make you wonder if you're doing something wrong. But what if I told you that those very moments, the ones that shake you to your core, aren't signs of failure, but invitations? Invitations from your soul to walk deeper into awareness, to look closer at yourself, and to heal parts of you that would otherwise remain untouched. You see, a child doesn't come to make your life easier. They come to make it real. And real is not always comfortable. Real stretches you. Real breaks open what you tried to bury. Real reveals what your calm days could never teach you. When a child acts out, when they scream in the middle of a store or cry for no apparent reason, the world may call it a tantrum. But your spirit knows it's a doorway, not into their behavior, but into your own heart. There is a sacred truth in parenting that many avoid because it demands humility. Your child's most difficult moments are a reflection of what still lies unresolved in you. They are not trying to embarrass you. They are inviting you to face your shadows, to question your responses, to shift from control to connection. The challenge is not them. It is the mirror they hold up without knowing it. When your child challenges your authority, do you feel disrespected or do you feel insecure? When they ignore your instructions, do you believe they're careless? Or do you remember being unheard as a child yourself? When they cry and cry and cry, do you try to silence them? Or does it stir something ancient in you, the grief you were never allowed to express? A child's emotional outbursts are never just about the present moment. They are carriers of deeper messages, not only for them, but for you. And if you slow down, if you resist the urge to fix or punish or suppress, you may begin to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you. That parenting is not about perfect control. It's about conscious response. It is so easy to say, my child is too sensitive. But what if their sensitivity is pointing you toward the tenderness you lost along the way? It is tempting to label them stubborn or wild, but what if their refusal to conform is the echo of your silenced rebellion? What if their chaos is your invitation to loosen your grip, to surrender the illusion that you must have everything together to be worthy of love? A child will do what no therapist, no teacher, no spiritual book can do. They will find the unhealed wound and press gently, then harder, until you finally pay attention. Not because they want to hurt you, but because their spirit and yours are entangled in a contract deeper than memory. You didn't just birth them, you called them in, and they came, not only to be loved, but to awaken something sleeping inside of you. That's why you cannot measure your growth by how few problems arise. You must measure your growth by how willing you are to stay present during the storm. Can you stay grounded when they scream? Can you stay soft when they push your buttons? Can you remain curious when all you want is to control? Because in that moment, right there, is your spiritual curriculum. This is why parenting is not for those chasing ease. It is for the ones willing to be undone and remade, for the ones who are brave enough to admit, I didn't have this modeled for me, but I'm learning now. For those who see the challenge not as opposition, but as opportunity. Your child's resistance may not be rebellion, it may be a call for reconnection. Their anger may not be defiance, it may be fear with no language. And your job is not to overpower it. Your job is to interpret it with love. And yes, love sometimes looks like boundaries, but not boundaries drawn in fury, boundaries formed from wisdom. Love sometimes looks like walking away to calm down. Love sometimes means admitting you were wrong so they know it's safe to be human. Love in its highest form is not a reaction, it's a revelation. When your child is spiraling, ask yourself, what are they needing that they don't know how to name? Is it presence? Is it attention? Is it regulation? Often we react to behavior and forget the emotion beneath it. But your child's behavior is only the surface. Go deeper. Go past the noise. There is always something sacred waiting underneath. Sometimes their struggles are not about you at all. They are facing their own inner battles, and they need a guide who doesn't mistake their pain for disobedience. And other times, their struggles are directly tied to your energy, your unresolved grief, your short fuse, your unspoken fears. The invitation is always the same. Go inward before you act outward. No one will ever trigger you quite like your child. Not because they mean to, but because they live in the places of your soul that have been too quiet for too long. They pull it out. The part of you that was overlooked, the part that was told to toughen up, the part that was never taught how to feel and still be safe. And when that part rises, when it meets your child's messy emotions, it doesn't always know what to do. That is the moment you have a choice. You can pass down what was given to you, rage, silence, blame, or you can transform it. You can say, I see you, and in seeing you, I am beginning to see myself. That is the invitation. That is the doorway into generational healing. It is not about whether your child makes mistakes. They will. It is not about whether they push you to the edge. They will. It is about what you do with that moment. Do you break the cycle? Do you create new pathways for compassion, communication, and trust? Or do you repeat what was handed down to you without question? There is power in the pause. There is healing in the breath you take before reacting. There is transformation in the moment you choose to see your child not as a problem, but as a portal, an entry point into a more awakened, more forgiving, more conscious version of you. And what a gift that is, that you get to grow beside them, that their challenges are not just burdens, they are bridges. They lead you to places in your spirit you would have never visited on your own. They stretch you, not to break you, but to rebuild you, wider and wiser and more capable of holding space for the light and the dark. So the next time your child brings you to your knees, not in joy, but in weariness, know that your knees are a sacred place. That posture of surrender is not weakness, it's the soil where strength begins. Your child is not standing against you. They are standing in front of you saying, "Can you see me? Really see me?" And in doing so, they are offering you the chance to finally see yourself. There is no guidebook for this kind of soul work. It is not always graceful. It is not always poetic. Sometimes it is messy, loud, painful, confusing, but it is also holy. Because every challenge your child brings is not the universe punishing you. It is the universe inviting you to rise. And when you answer that invitation, not perfectly but willingly, not flawlessly but faithfully, you begin to understand that parenting was never meant to be about control. It was meant to be about communion between souls, between generations, between the past you carry and the future you create and your child. They are not the interruption, they are the path. There comes a moment, often unannounced, when you realize that what you carry is not just yours. The anger you feel isn't always about what your child did today. The sadness that tugs at you in quiet moments isn't only about today's burdens. Sometimes what you carry is a story written years ago, long before you ever became a parent, long before your child ever whispered your name. And yet those old wounds, the ones you didn't tend to, the ones you silenced, the ones you dismissed as survival, have made a home in your heart. And without realizing it, they've begun to shape how you love, how you speak, how you hold your child when they cry. Forgiveness, the world tells us, is something we extend to others. Say, "I'm sorry," offer second chances, let it go. But that's not where forgiveness begins. It begins in the quietest of places. It begins inside. It begins with the willingness to tell the truth about your pain and to meet it without shame. If you were raised in a home where emotions were punished, you might struggle to allow your child to feel freely. If you grew up with criticism louder than comfort, you might find yourself repeating harsh tones, even when you swore you never would. And when you catch yourself in those moments, when your words sound like someone else's, when your hands shake with guilt after slamming a door, when your eyes fill with tears because you thought you'd healed long ago, you are not failing. You are remembering. And in that remembrance, there lies the most beautiful possibility, the chance to begin again, not just with your child, but with yourself. You see, the reason many of us struggle to parent with patience, compassion, and steadiness is not because we lack love. It's because we have not yet forgiven the child we once were. We haven't gone back to that lonely bedroom, to that silent dinner table, to that time someone laughed at our tears or ignored our fear. We haven't held that child, the one inside us, and said, "You didn't deserve that." And because we haven't said it to ourselves, we struggle to say it to our own children. Forgiveness doesn't mean you excuse what happened. It means you choose to stop dragging the weight of it into your future. It means you no longer let an old voice control your present choices. It means you recognize that while you couldn't protect yourself then, you can protect your child now, but only if you stop punishing yourself for the past. When you forgive yourself, you give your child something more precious than anything money can buy. The gift of a parent who is healing, a parent who is aware, a parent who doesn't just demand obedience, but models grace. A parent who can say, "I didn't get it right yesterday, but I'm here. I'm trying. I'm learning." That vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you trustworthy. Your child isn't waiting for perfection. They're waiting for presence. They're waiting to know that love doesn't vanish when mistakes appear. And the best way to teach that is to believe it about yourself. If you cannot forgive yourself, how will your child learn to forgive themselves? If you cannot release the guilt of yesterday, how can they trust that they are more than their worst moments? We talk so much about breaking cycles, but the first cycle that must break is the one of inner punishment. The belief that you must always carry regret like a badge, that you must atone forever for not being perfect. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be real. And real love, the kind that stretches across generations, begins with compassion, not just for your child, for you. Forgiveness is not always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as breathing through a difficult memory instead of running from it. Sometimes it's looking at your child's frustration and choosing not to meet it with your own. Sometimes it's sitting with your shame and saying, "You don't define me anymore." You may not have been given the parenting you needed. You may not have heard, "I'm proud of you," or "I see your pain," or "You are safe to cry here." But you can say those words now, not just to your child, to yourself, because until you believe them, they will always be harder to give. Some of us are still chasing the love we didn't get, even as we try to give it to someone else. And that can feel like pouring from an empty cup. But forgiveness, true, deep, spiritual forgiveness, fills that cup again, not in one grand moment, but in many small ones. Each time you choose softness over shame. Each time you respond with kindness instead of criticism. Each time you let yourself be human, you reclaim a part of your power. There's no manual for how to forgive the past. There's no step-by-step process. But there is truth, and there is tenderness, and there is time. And your child, in all their complexity, becomes your greatest reminder that healing is not only possible, it's necessary. You might see your younger self in them, in their tears, in their laughter, in their longing to be seen. And when you do, let that vision soften you. Let it remind you that just as they are worthy of your gentleness, so are you. You don't have to earn it, you just have to allow it. Some people fear that if they forgive themselves, they're letting themselves off the hook. But forgiveness is not release from accountability. It's release from self-condemnation. You can hold yourself responsible and still hold yourself in love. You can say, "I made a mistake," and still say, "I am a good parent." You can remember your worst moments and still believe in your best intentions. This is how your child learns, not just from what you say, but from how you live. When they see you treat yourself with respect, they learn to do the same. When they watch you apologize, they learn that dignity and humility can coexist. When they hear you say, "That wasn't my best moment, but I'm growing," they learn that growth is a journey, not a destination. Forgiveness frees not only your heart, it frees your home. It changes the tone of the air. It softens the silences. It builds a place where mistakes are not met with fear, but with learning, where love is not lost in the chaos, but found again and again through effort and understanding. And it always begins with you, not because you are the one to blame, but because you are the one who holds the key to unlocking a gentler path forward, the key to choosing compassion over criticism, the key to creating a family culture where no one is expected to be flawless, only faithful to the work of becoming. Your child does not need you to be unscarred. They need you to be honest, to show them that wounds can become wisdom, that apologies can be powerful, that self-forgiveness is not weakness, it is liberation. When you forgive yourself, you teach your child the most essential truth of all, that love can be unconditional, even for yourself. There will come a day when the noise of the world fades, when the titles behind your name lose their shine, when the money you worked so hard for rests in someone else's hands, and the things you once chased with urgency no longer seem to matter. On that day, you will not be remembered by the hours you spent in meetings or the awards you collected along the way. You will be remembered in the way your child speaks when your name is mentioned, in the way they love, in the way they carry themselves when no one is watching, in the way they choose courage or fear. That is legacy. And legacy is not something you build when you're gone. It's something you raise while you're here. So many of us spend our lives chasing a version of greatness defined by the outside world. We measure our worth in things that can be counted. We believe legacy lives in buildings or businesses or bank accounts. But the most enduring mark you will leave on this world lives in someone's heart, not in your estate. Your true legacy breathes through the spirit of the child you raise, through the soul you shaped, the values you whispered again and again, the presence you offered in the smallest moments. You can pass down property and position, but if you do not pass down wisdom and love, then what have you really given? If your child inherits your wealth but not your integrity, your connections but not your compassion, your influence but not your inner peace, then the foundation you built is hollow. Legacy without soul is noise. It echoes loudly, but briefly, then disappears. But legacy planted in a child's spirit becomes something eternal, something that grows even when you're gone, something that teaches others long after your voice has faded. You are not raising a child just to survive in this world. You are raising someone who may one day shape the world, someone who will walk into rooms you may never see, someone who will touch hearts you will never meet, someone who will carry your name, yes, but more importantly, will carry your lessons. And the most powerful lessons are not delivered in grand speeches. They are lived daily in the quiet moments. When you teach your child to speak kindly, even when they're angry, you plant a seed. When you teach them to apologize sincerely, to own their mistakes without losing their dignity, you plant a seed. When you teach them to notice who's being left out, to stand up for what's right even when it's hard, to say thank you with their whole chest, you're planting something that outlives you. Legacy is in the way your child speaks to the waiter. It's in how they treat someone who can do nothing for them. It's in the way they handle rejection, the way they respond to failure, the way they love without keeping score. These are things you don't buy. They're things you embody. They watch you more than they listen to you. They notice the way you look when you're worried, the way you walk when you're tired, the way you treat people when no one's watching. You don't have to be perfect to leave a legacy worth remembering. You only have to be intentional. You only have to care more about what kind of person your child becomes than how the world perceives you. You only have to show up again and again in truth, not always with the right answer, but always with the right presence. There will be days when your child doesn't seem to notice, when they roll their eyes at your advice, when they shrug off your reminders. But don't be fooled. Legacy doesn't always show up in applause. It shows up in who they are when they're scared or proud or alone. It shows up in their choices when you're no longer the one reminding them. And you will realize that every bedtime story, every deep breath before a response, every tear you wiped without complaint, those were not small things. They were seeds. And the harvest will come. There's a kind of wealth that can't be taxed, a kind of inheritance that doesn't come with paperwork. It's the wealth of knowing your child can walk through this world with empathy, that they know how to ask for help without shame, that they can sit with someone's pain without needing to fix it, that they know their worth even when the world forgets to tell them, that they know how to offer love without fear and receive it without suspicion. That is a legacy no money can match. You are writing your legacy every time you look into your child's eyes and choose love over ego. You are writing it every time you admit you were wrong and show them that real strength bows when it must. You are writing it when you sit on the edge of their bed and ask how their day was, even when you're too tired to talk, when you hold them through their meltdowns instead of walking away, when you tell them the truth, even when it's messy. You are showing them how to be human, not just how to behave. Legacy is not always glamorous. Sometimes it's in the dishes you wash after everyone's gone to bed. Sometimes it's in the story you tell when they feel lost. Sometimes it's in the quiet forgiveness you offer when they lash out, because you understand that what they need most is not punishment, but connection. And yes, sometimes it's in the boundaries you hold firm, in the no you say with love, in the structure you provide that makes them feel safe even when they don't like it. You don't raise legacy by doing big things once. You raise it by doing small things with great love consistently, the way you wake them for school, the way you hold them when they fail, the way you celebrate their courage, not just their achievements, the way you remind them over and over again that their worth is not something they earn, it's something they already have. One day, your child may become a parent too. And on that day, they will reach into the invisible toolbox you've been filling all their life. They will reach for your words, your tone, your patience, your strength. They will hold their child and realize they've carried your legacy in their hands. And if you've done the work, if you've led with love more than pride, with healing more than tradition, they will pass it on. And your name will live not just in memory, but in motion. People will speak of what you built, but your child will live what you believed. People will remember your titles, but your child will reflect your values. People may honor you in ceremonies, but your child will honor you every time they choose grace over judgment, truth over silence, love over fear. And that is the kind of legacy that outlives monuments. That is the kind of legacy that reshapes generations. You are not just raising a child, you are raising your echo, your continuation, your most sacred gift to a world you will one day leave. And if you raise them in love, in courage, in authenticity, you have already left behind the very best of yourself. We look for God in cathedrals, in temples, in mountaintops and meditations. We seek the divine in the mystery, in the rare and radiant places. We think we must go somewhere to find it, sit in silence for hours, read holy texts, travel to distant lands, chant words we barely understand. But the greatest spiritual work is not always wrapped in incense and silence, it's wrapped in the everyday. It happens when you're tying a child's shoelaces while running late. It happens when your voice quivers, but you choose not to shout. It happens when the milk spills again and you breathe instead of break. It happens in the ordinary, in the routine, in the deeply human. If you wait for silence to do your soul work, you'll miss the symphony of the sacred that plays in the chaos. Because parenting, oh yes, parenting is sacred, not because it's picture perfect, but because it strips you bare. It calls you to love when you are bone tired. It asks you to give when you feel you have nothing left. It dares you to see the divine in a child who just smeared peanut butter on your favorite white blouse. And when you rise to meet those moments with grace, when you choose connection over control, presence over perfection, you are doing holy work. We forget that. We think holiness belongs to robes and candles and prayers said with folded hands. But sometimes holiness is the whispered "I love you" at bedtime when your patience has run dry. Sometimes it's the quiet apology after a harsh word. Sometimes it's the gentle touch on a forehead burning with fever. Sometimes it's the choosing to sit beside your child when your phone is buzzing with everything else. See, the sacred does not wait for ceremony. It's already there in your living room. It's there in the mornings you rise early to make lunch. It's in the nights you sit in the dark while they cry, unsure of what to say but refusing to leave. It's in the 100th repetition of, "Please use kind words," in the 1,000th repetition of, "I'm proud of you," even when the world isn't clapping. It's not glamorous, and it's not always praised, but it is the fabric of love made real. Children don't always remember what you teach them, but they remember how you made them feel. They remember if they felt safe when they made mistakes. They remember if they could cry without shame. They remember if they were allowed to be messy, complicated, beautifully unfinished, and still be loved. That's the spiritual work, not fixing them, not perfecting them, but seeing them, holding space for their souls to unfold in their own time. There is no applause in the sacred mundane, no spotlight when you're folding laundry or brushing tangled hair, but in those moments, something invisible is being built, a child's sense of belonging, a foundation of worthiness, a belief that love doesn't have to be earned with achievement, that kind of knowing. It can't be taught in words. It must be felt. It must be lived with them over and over again in the everyday. You are not just parenting a child. You are walking a spiritual path with them. You are showing them that God is not far away, that love is not conditional, that forgiveness doesn't require perfection, and you do it not by preaching, but by practicing, by showing them what it looks like to admit fault, what it looks like to begin again after a hard day, what it looks like to choose tenderness even when the world teaches toughness. There are days when the mess feels overwhelming, when the sink is full, the homework is forgotten, the shoes are missing, and the energy is gone. But those are the moments where the spiritual work is richest, when you decide to breathe instead of boil, when you turn toward instead of away, when you remember that your child is not an interruption to your peace, but an invitation to deepen it. Your child will not remember every lesson you try to teach, but they will carry the echo of how you treated them through every relationship they enter. If you teach them that love is loud and angry, they will search for that sound in future partners. If you teach them that love is quiet, safe, and steady, they will recognize it when it shows up. So each time you respond with gentleness, you are shaping not only their future, but the future of those they will love one day. Let us not miss the miracles hiding in the ordinary. A hand reached out after an argument, a giggle in the middle of chores, a question asked at bedtime that opens a door to a child's tender heart. These are not distractions. These are the moments that matter. These are the places where heaven peeks through, not with thunder, but with the soft whisper of, I see you, I know you, I'm still here. You don't have to do it perfectly. You only have to show up. Spiritual work is not about performance. It's about presence. It's not about having the answers. It's about being willing to sit in the questions with your child. It's not about never losing your temper. It's about repairing when you do. And that repair, that coming back after rupture, that is some of the holiest work you will ever do. There is beauty in the brokenness. There is learning in the late nights. There is depth in the dull routines, the folding of socks, the rides to school, the snack packed just the way they like it. These are threads in the tapestry of trust. They say, you matter to me, even when life is loud, even when I am tired, even when I have 1,000 other things to do, you are not one of them. You are my purpose, not my burden. We must shift our gaze. We must stop waiting for big moments to feel spiritual. We must begin to see the sacred in the now, in the unbrushed hair, in the lunchbox notes, in the tantrums and the teaching and the trying again. We must remember that a child's soul doesn't grow in grand gestures. It grows in the soil of consistent love. Every time you say, I'm here, even when you don't feel ready, you're doing the work. Every time you listen when it would be easier to lecture, you're doing the work. Every time you slow down, kneel to their level, and truly see them, you're changing not just your child, but the world. Because children raised in love become adults who lead with love. And that, more than anything else, is the spiritual revolution we need. So yes, tend to the sacred, but do not look too far. Do not wait for quiet temples and burning candles. Look to your home. Look to the messy floors and the noise and the laughter and the tears. That is your temple. That is your prayer. That is where the spiritual work is alive and well, waiting to be done in the next ordinary moment you're brave enough to meet with your full heart. You are not just a parent. You are a soul assigned to guide another. And that soul you're raising, they are your karma, your reflection, your test, and your teacher. Don't miss the lesson in the noise. Don't wait for perfection to offer your love. Your child is not a burden. They are your becoming. So the next time you look into their eyes, remember, you're not just shaping a future, you're healing a past. And in between, you're discovering who you really are.